Meanwhile, as the economy battles a recession, one of the hardest hit areas is the aviation and tourism sector. At the Singapore Airlines Group, more than 6,000 of its 27,000 staff have taken no-pay leave of varying lengths to help the company cope with the collapse in air travel.
And more than 1,700 employees, including ground staff, pilots and cabin crew at SIA, SOCA and Scoot, have signed up for volunteer positions and jobs in external organizations. Unlike several other airlines, the SIA Group has managed to stave off job cuts so far.
Now, to discuss this further, we are now joined by Brendan Sobie, an independent aviation analyst and founder of Sobie Aviation. Brendan, last month, SIA said it raised about $11 billion in liquidity so far for the 2020 and 2021 financial year. Now, SIA has also tapped government support, including wage subsidies. How much of a respite is this for the national carrier to help tide over this difficult period?
Yeah, so $11 billion, which has been raised so far over the last several months in terms of liquidity, is a really large amount. It's more than any other airline or airline group in Asia. So it really provides ample liquidity and cash for what would be a prolonged downturn, which is what we're now expecting. So even if this continues for 2-3 years, SIA has the ability to weather the storm and come back strong once we're finally out of this pandemic and once the international travel market has finally recovered. They also have the option of raising another $6 billion in convertible bonds, which they can exercise next year should they choose to need another $6 billion. So they clearly have enough to get through this. And then there's other government support as well, like you were mentioning, including the wage subsidy scheme. The wage subsidy scheme has been providing about $40 million per month, backdated all the way to last October, and that has helped the airline or airline group avoid job cuts so far because they are able to get some support from the government to pay the workers. The wage subsidy scheme is set to expire at the end of this month. There might be some extension of it or a wind down, but inevitably the government won't be able to provide this forever for like a 2-3 year downturn like we expect for the industry and for Singapore Airlines. So unfortunately that could lead to some job cuts at some point. So far, there's been a lot of unpaid leave, which has been in place since the end of February and has been expanding and continues to be offered. And but that only does that's not forever as well. There's only a period of time that those obviously will lapse.
We know international borders are not going to reopen anytime soon, although smaller, more specific permitted travel arrangements like the green lanes with China and Malaysia are in place. How have the lack of progress in reopening these borders and establishing travel bubbles in Asia affected SIA and in general Changi Airport, Brendan?
So Singapore relies entirely on the international market. So without travel bubbles, without the resumption of international travel, not much traffic can be generated. So far we've seen Changi traffic levels at over 99% down compared to normal, and Singapore Airlines also more than 99% down. And the reason is only a very small amounts of people generally repatriating traffic. So people heading home, maybe they've lost their jobs or they have new jobs, or people who were maybe stranded outside Singapore who need to come back. That's the only traffic that we've seen so far. And what the bubbles do is it allows more, what's referred to as two-way traffic. So not just one-way repatriating traffic, but actual real traffic where people are leaving and coming back because they have essential business travel or other kinds of travel. But so far, these two bubbles that have been announced so far have had very limited impact. So until we see more bubbles and really bubbles that potentially have a significant impact on air travel, maybe leisure travel or just business travel bubbles with less limitations, there's just not going to be any pickup in traffic. We're going to be stuck at this 99% down level until we have meaningful travel bubbles. And right now, in the immediate horizon, there doesn't seem to be any chance of that. So both the airport and the airline group is stuck in this really difficult situation.
Now, on that note, even when air travel is allowed to resume, it will not be how we knew it to be. SIA is also currently working on its fleet review. How will SIA change when all these conclude?
Well, there's the SIA is having a big review right now, and it should be done by October. So SIA is going to look a lot different than what we are used to SIA looking like. And it's, during the pandemic, the airline is obviously very small. It's only operating about 7% of its normal schedule, and load factors have been about 10%. So 9 out of 10 seats have been empty, and mainly the airline's just carrying cargo. And of course, there's all these protocols in place, in terms of cleaning, in terms of face masks, and also and everything else that's been implemented to ensure safe travel. But in the long term, Singapore Airlines will also be different. So even when we're out of this pandemic, say a year from now or 2 years from now, the airline will be much smaller for at least a couple of years. It might be 4 or 5 years before the airline is back to its normal size, and they'll be relying on smaller aircraft. Their network won't have as many destinations. Of course, they won't require as many employees as they have in the past as well. From a fleet perspective, the A380 is particularly vulnerable as they review their fleet going forward, because the A380 is by far their largest aircraft, and there's just not enough demand to fill it. The question is just how many aircraft do they really need? And also the 777s, which is the second largest of their aircraft, those are all grounded right now, and a lot of those won't come back. So right now they're relying on their smaller wide bodies, the 787s and A350s, which are, I think, better positioned for the downturn and the reduced demand. And they're also going to rely more on narrow bodies, including the 737s, which are now at SilkAir, but they're going to be transferred over to Singapore Airlines over the next several months as SilkAir goes away and Singapore Airlines absorbs SilkAir. So you're going to see a more narrow body heavy fleet. So there's going to be a lot of destinations in Asia that used to be served by wide bodies that will be served by the smaller narrow bodies for the next few years, I suspect.
Great insights, Brendan. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with us. We were speaking to Brendan Sobie, an independent analyst at Sobie Aviation.